Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my personal podcast tour of the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe. How Vincent Price was caught up in the quiz show scandal of 1957. Vincent Price was America's much-loved gentleman of horror, a favorite actor of many genre fans. His privileged high society upbringing in Missouri gave him a courtly old-world charm that could effortlessly turn into a frosty superiority in period horror movies. But Vincent was also a modern man of his time, unafraid to embrace the cutting edge of technology when cinema felt threatened by the new medium of television. As we shall see, though, it was an edge that could cut both ways. His breakout film role in House of Wax in 1953 was a pioneering example of 3D. He threw himself into producer William Castle's unique movie gimmickry such as Emergo and Percepto to keep audiences coming to the big screen. Most importantly, though, he was broad-minded enough to be an early adopter of TV as a source of work and raising his profile as a household name. Some actors dismissed TV as lowbrow work, much as the previous generation did when motion pictures were invented. Vincent, however, was no snob when it came to appealing to public taste. The same man who went on to sell art to the masses through the Sears Roebuck catalog chain, as I'll cover in a future episode, had by 1950 already racked up over 200 credits across live televised drama and quiz shows. It was to be this latter format that caused an incident that did his reputation no favors at all, if one looks below the reported story. It's a case I knew nothing about till reading A Daughter's Biography by Victoria Price. It concerns his involvement in the infamous quiz show scandals of 1957, dramatized in Robert Redford's compelling 1994 film Quiz Show. Let me set the scene. A number of these television programs, most notably 21, hosted by Jack Barry, had fallen victim to the temptation to coach certain guests in their general knowledge answers, in order to manufacture more tension and falsely prolong those participants' success who were deemed good TV for the ratings, and thus all-important sponsorship dollars. The guests were usually members of the public, their relatability being a key component of the drama for the folks at home. In the case of 21, the producer's deception was particularly egregious. They firstly took a genuinely knowledgeable contestant, Herb Stempel, who was blessed with a photographic memory, and as with many previous contestants, they artificially boosted him to small-screen fame. He was complicit in the scam, given prepared questions, and also coached in acting technique to ramp up the drama. But, upon discovering the telegenic Columbia University English teacher Charles Van Doren, Stempel was forced to take a dive on the show to make way for him. The handsome Van Doren, son of a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, essentially was groomed as if for a soap opera lead. The producers were willing to not only continue faking an unfolding drama, but to pander to unspoken racism in its audience. Stempel's prodigious memory could have competed successfully against Van Doren on the level playing field of general knowledge, but not in the unfair arena of optics. His opponent's waspish non-Semitic looks and illustrious pedigree were considered far more suitable for audiences and sponsors, reflecting back their idealized versions of themselves as educated and attractive. Stempel and Van Doren were not the only ones caught up in the resulting exposure. Vincent Price found himself under a much less welcome spotlight than usual after his run on the $64,000 challenge. The format here centered around a celebrity from one field fending off challengers in another chosen area of their expertise. In 1956, Vincent dueled good-naturedly with championship jockey turned art expert Billy Pearson, until the two ended up splitting the final prize money after weeks of enthralling home viewers. As resulting champion, Vincent picked his close friend, fellow actor and fellow art collector Edward G. Robinson to be his challenger, and this is where events started to get murkier. On the one hand, the show crystallized his genuine desire to bring art to the masses. In one program he said, "You don't need $64,000 to be a collector or to enjoy art. It doesn't cost 64 cents to go to a museum." On the other hand, Vincent became embroiled in suspicions about his integrity over how his episodes were planned and played out. It led him to be targeted by the same United States Congress investigation into TV show fixing as Van Doren and Stempel. His and Robinson's gripping 6-week battle of wills made top TV, whilst gossipy accusations were made in the press that the outcome, another tie for first place, was a deliberate dive taken by Vincent for his friend's sake. This wasn't the real problem. Where he became unstuck was in the interpretation of his preparation for his performances, which Vincent argued were entirely innocent on his part. For his first 2 Sundays of broadcasts, he simply arrived, shot the episodes, and left. However, the following week, before the show, he was summoned to see Mert Coplin from the program's PR firm Cowan. Coplin proceeded to ask Vincent a series of art questions along with showing pictures for him to identify. He did his best, but was given no indication of his results as he went along. What was suggested was that he instead would be required to meet Coplin the same way before every subsequent show. Vincent claimed not to have been informed that on each occasion, those questions and answers ended up being used in the show. The allegation that he was being unfairly and knowingly briefed for his performances was so serious that Vincent had to employ a high-powered law firm, Peel, Lesser, Mann, Reamer, and Luxford, to prepare a 25-page statement painstakingly itemizing his innocence at every stage. The sections of his document quoted in a daughter's biography makes for a very hazardous walk through grey areas of culpability, and it's a credit to Victoria that she doesn't let her father off the hook as easily as might be expected. Vincent maintained his blamelessness in Coplin's suspected coaching across 3 bullet points, which I'll summarize as 1. Okay, it gave him a couple of hours extra time to consider an answer instead of all of a sudden on camera. 2. Coplin didn't indicate which of his answers were actually correct, nor helped him correct any errors. 3. There wasn't enough time before the live show anyway for Vincent to research any answers he was unable to give Coplin to a question. The declaration stated, and I quote, that what Mr. Coplin actually was doing was giving him more time in which to give a more entertaining and informative answer, without in fact affecting the basic integrity of the contest. This would be controversial enough were it not for examples in the same account where Coplin blatantly transgressed into actual influence on his star's answers. For example, one question asked him to name a number of artists by their signatures or identifying marks. Witnessing Vincent going down the blind alley of German painters, Coplin nudged him, "Try the Italian school." Regardless of whether or not he then confirmed Vincent's second guess of Michelangelo, this is still unfair assistance. Before another episode, when Vincent accidentally misnamed an artist and subject of 2 different paintings for each other, Coplin told him his error. The most blatantly sinister guiding utterance of this shady figure came after the question of which other artists worked on Michelangelo's The Last Judgment in the Sistine Chapel. Vincent could not recall if he had remembered Daniel da Volterra without help. Regardless, Coplin mused, what if Eddie should miss this question? If he does, it is up to you whether you win tonight or you tie. This sounds as chillingly persuasive as a mafia hood telling a shop owner, it'd be a shame if something were to happen to your business. The upshot of this was that the conscience-stricken actor missed this vital question in the broadcast that would have otherwise given him an easy and rigged victory over his friend. Noble as that unforced error was, it must still count as being forewarned in a way his good friend Eddie was not. Vincent convinced himself and others that his conduct throughout was honest, though he somewhat contradicted this in an interview when the story got out. Promoting the very real educational value his appearances had for art appreciation, he justified the shows as programs that were imparting knowledge, regardless of how they were phonied up. I've no wish to use this story as some revisionist muckraking about Vincent Price. Ultimately, its effect was more a temporary private embarrassment than a public shaming, and as he reasoned, it was worth it for the sincere public service he did for art in demystifying a previously elitist world. I simply figured that others may be as fascinated as I was by how a notorious moment in pop culture history seduced one of its most celebrated performers. Vincent went on to enjoy another 3 decades of giving pleasure to fans in films, art, cookery, and indeed television. Such was his positive impact on the little box that he received a 2nd star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for his contribution to TV. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe.